Hello everyone, I'm Jordana Van of Ravenlight Holistic Healing and welcome to Jaguar and Black Panther as a totem. Before we get started, it's important to note that Black Panthers are actually not their own species of big cat. Rather, they are the name given to melanistic or all black jaguars and leopards. So if you resonate with Black Panther as a totem, you're first and foremost either a jaguar person or a leopard person, with some other qualities added because of the all-black coloration. I've made another video, which is also on this channel, about leopard and Black Panther as a totem. So if you watch this video and it doesn't feel right for you, try the one on leopards. Also, you guys have been asking me for this video and for one talking about the differences between jaguars and leopards as totems, almost from the moment I released the one on leopards. So while this video is intended to stand alone as an explanation of jaguar as a totem, including what it means when your jaguar is all black, I'm going to talk about the physical differences between jaguars and leopards in a moment to help you better identify which cat is your totem. And I will occasionally throughout the video make mention of how jaguars and leopards differ in their spiritual wisdom. And lastly, as always, if you can't figure out which is your totem and you need some assistance, or if you'd like to know more about Jaguar and Black Panther as totems, because in an effort to keep these videos to a certain time limit, I don't cover everything here, you are welcome to schedule an animal totem and spirit guide interpretation session with me by visiting my website. I would be delighted to work with you. So let's get started by doing a quick overview of how you can tell the difference between a leopard and a jaguar just by looking at it. The most obvious difference is in the spot patterns on their coats. Even when the cat is all black, this pattern is usually faintly visible. These circular patterns are called rosettes, and if it's a jaguar, there's an additional spot inside the rosette, like a bullseye. If it's a leopard, the rosette is open. The next way to tell the difference is in the cat's physical build. Leopards have a really lean quality about them, while jaguars are much stockier, much more clearly heavily muscled, with a broader head and obviously stronger jaws. If you think about the difference between like a luxury SUV and a classic Humvee as far as all-terrain vehicles go, that's kind of the aesthetic difference we're talking about here. Lastly, a jaguar's tail is noticeably shorter. A jaguar's tail is usually between 1.5 and 2.5 feet long, while a leopard's tail is at least 2 feet long and can be as long as 3.6 feet. So let's talk about what it means when you have jaguar as a totem. Most sources say that the name jaguar comes from the Native American jaguar, which means he who kills with one leap or one blow, depending on the translation. I've also read that the original word was jaguarete, which means true fierce beast. Either way, this is not a cat you want to mess around with. Jaguars are able to kill with one bound, largely because the force of their bite is incredibly strong. They can crunch through bone, even through a turtle shell. And one of their most frequent methods for killing prey is to pounce on it, and then before the prey has any idea what's happening, to bite straight down on the prey's head and penetrate the brain with their canine teeth. They don't always use this method. Sometimes they do go for the throat and they employ suffocation like other big cats do, but they're the only ones who can kill prey in this fashion among the big cats. When your totem animal is a creature known for the strength of its bite, we are talking about someone who doesn't mince words. Jaguar people tend to be quite direct, often shockingly so. They will point out your weaknesses or what they perceive as your flaws without taking your feelings into account. How you feel, in their mind, is less important than the truth. This isn't because they're cruel. They just don't have any patience for anything less than the facts. When you try to BS them, or even if you are speaking from how you really feel but they think you're missing something, it seems to them that you're wasting their time. So talking to a jaguar person can feel a lot like having someone bite your head off. This also makes them nearly impossible to argue with. They are super stubborn, and they don't have any patience for prevarication or excuses because in their mind, it's a waste of time. So they're going to say whatever is necessary to shut you down at once, and whatever that is probably going to hurt a lot, or it will really make you rethink the situation. If you need to be shaken up, the jaguar person will do it. Now, a mature jaguar person, and when I say mature, we're not talking about maturity as far as years, age goes. We're talking about how well you've learned the lessons of this totem. A mature Jaguar person sees the truth as it really is, not for what their egos want it to be. They see how people delude themselves and how they take shelter in fear or anger or powerlessness in order to avoid taking responsibility for their lives. But they can also recognize this within themselves. And this is what makes them truly powerful. When we recognize our own illusions and our own way of keeping ourselves from being what we really want to be, then we can move beyond these things and nothing can stop us. This kind of bite strength in a totem animal is really representative of the kind of person who is intended to be able to passionately seize what they want through sheer force of will and with little to no assistance. Some totems really teach self-reliance and faith in oneself, and this is one of those. So if you're a Jaguar person and you've been lamenting how everyone treats you badly or no one gives you the opportunities that you need, Jaguar would tell you very bluntly to knock that silliness off, to look at your illusions about powerlessness and let them go. The only thing standing between you and what you want, the things that will nourish you, satisfy you, give you energy, and make you love your life, is your belief in yourself. Jaguar people are usually far more powerful and capable than they realize. Once they stop looking for other people to give them what they want and begin trusting themselves as the source of power in their life, things shift dramatically. Now, for all this ferocious strength, you'd think Jaguars would be quite dangerous to humans, but it's actually extremely rare for a Jaguar to attack a human. Unlike leopards, who can become addicted to the taste of human flesh and then turn into reckless man-eaters, or mountain lions, who are well known to attack hikers. In fact, though Jaguars are often considered the strongest of the big cats, they have one of the lowest number of recorded attacks on humans. They are not mindless, bloodthirsty beasts looking to kill whatever crosses their path. Similarly, Jaguar people are some of the most powerful individuals on the planet, but they aren't brutes. They may hurt you something awful by speaking the truth as they see it, but they don't usually speak it to hurt you. They just can't see why on earth you would want to stay wrapped up in illusions and useless drama when if you looked at the truth of your situation, you could finally create some happiness and ease for yourself. Speaking the truth, in fact, is their act of love. It's what they were made to do. Now, this outrageously dangerous creature is often the totem of extremely loving people. And part of the reason for this is the Jaguar's affinity for water. Jaguars love water. They love to swim in it, play in it, hunt in it, and they tend to make their homes near it. Water is the metaphysical equivalent of emotion and intuition, the feeling portion of our existence. Jaguar people are extremely intuitive, and they're typically very spiritually minded. A mature Jaguar person knows on a soul level that life is to be lived fully and passionately, not frittered away with petty dramas. So they know they're here to dance with the divine, and you can't do that when you're making your life about hurting or controlling other people. Your life has to be about you. Jaguar people also embrace all emotion, letting themselves be vibrantly happy, darkly angry, crushingly sad. When you allow your emotions to speak to you, when you really let yourself be intimate with them instead of trying to push them away or pretend they don't exist or intellectualize them, you know they're there, but you don't really let them move you, then they no longer control you. And this is what allows Jaguar people to live their lives in the way that has the potential to inspire others, instead of letting anger or sadness or jealousy or some other negative emotion cause them to channel all their power into destruction. In fact, most mature Jaguar people are poster children for how good life can be when you really just let yourself be you. However, if you are a Jaguar person and you notice you are using your words to intentionally hurt others, then it's time to take a good hard look at yourself and ask yourself, what are you really feeling? Why are you doing this? Then you need to spend some time working with that so you can get to the bottom of what's going on and make some changes either to your life or to your attitude. You are not intended to intentionally hurt others for the sake of doing so. Now, one last note on the subject of Jaguars and leopards and water. Jaguars really truly love water. They love to laze in it and play in it and hunt in it, and again, they're usually found near it because it's so crucial for them. In the video on leopards, I say that leopards love water. This is actually not true. I had been relying upon what at the time I thought was a reputable source of information on leopard behavior, because that source is an internationally known organization that exists to educate people about animals. However, later, after examining several other equally reputable sources, I realized that the first source was the only one who said this about leopards. All other very reputable sources said that leopards are extremely strong swimmers. They're good in the water, but they'll avoid it if possible. This isn't the place to go into a detailed correction of the wisdom as far as leopards go. So suffice it to say, if you do watch the video on leopards, that what I said about leopards and waters is still basically true, because they can handle water well. But while leopard people can deal with their emotions better than many others, they can't hold a candle to how well jaguar people are intended to be able to do it. Moving on. As I mentioned earlier, one of the ways you can tell the difference between a leopard and a jaguar is the length of its tail. A totem animal's tail is often associated with a person's level of groundedness. Living mostly in trees, the way that they do, leopards represent the element of air. And air is about thought, about what occurs in the conscious mind. The leopard has a distinctly longer tail than the jaguar because it needs it to help it balance high in the trees. That tail is also a metaphorical tether to earth, a reminder that they have to get out of their heads and come back down to reality now and again to reground and to reassess what is really going on with them. If they don't do this, they're prone to losing touch with what's occurring in their reality because their minds run away with them. They can become obsessive about things, so caught up in wanting something that they can't think of anything else. And they may make decisions based on this obsession that gets them into trouble. They can also be a bit oblivious at times because they may ignore the voice of their intuition. As long as everything looks okay or logic says it should be okay, they don't question it, even if their gut's telling them otherwise. Jaguars, on the other hand, have shorter tails because while they can climb trees as well as a leopard, they don't live in them, and they tend to just hang out in the lower branches. Metaphysically, that short tail is indicative of a closer tie to earth, which represents practicality, stability, real-world living. Being down to earth, so to speak. And so jaguar people aren't as prone to the same issues as someone with so much air influence. They don't tend to overthink or obsess to the same degree, and they don't usually allow appearances to goad them into ignoring their intuition. And if you are a jaguar person and you do these things, then jaguar's probably about ready to teach you how to stop doing them. Now, if you're familiar at all with the Aztec or Mayan pantheon, you might know that jaguars are affiliated with their fiercest warriors. And a jaguar person can shred your self-esteem to pieces if you dare place yourself between them and something they want. But when I first learned about jaguar in a spiritual context, it was from a Toltec healer who talked about their relation to those who become shamans and healers. In fact, this healer's name was Ocelocoyotl, which actually means jaguar in Nahuatl. So this is because living in the trees and on the ground, living in both regions, and wearing a spotted coat that was equated to the stars in the sky, the jaguar was seen as a messenger who moved between the worlds. He had access to the messages of the gods in the heavens, but could communicate with those living on the earth. Interestingly, where biologists used to think that jaguars were nocturnal, nighttime hunters, more recently they've actually discovered that jaguars hunt at dawn and dusk, the classic between times, where the boundaries between earth and spirit, or the living and the dead, are supposedly thin, and one can move between one world and the next. Being a healer or a source of spiritual guidance is about a lot more than just being intuitive and having access to heavenly messages. You've got to be grounded as well. I can't tell you guys how many very intuitive people I've met who are red-hot messes. Because while they can tune into the spiritual realm very easily, they tend to park themselves there and forget how to live in the physical. They forget to eat or shower or pay their bills or put gas in the car, or they can't communicate clearly. Or if they don't forget, they may begin to resent or demonize real-world living, making the physical somehow less than the spiritual, and then they wind up ill or completely broke. They also have trouble finishing what they start because they can't stay focused on real-world goals. If you want to actually help people with the wisdom you receive from the divine, you've got to have one foot on the earth as well as in spirit. Yes, we are spiritual beings, more so than most of us can even comprehend. But we were given physical bodies with physical needs for a reason. You can't have one without the other, at least not yet, and expect health and happiness. Nor can you communicate to others how to create their health and happiness. Fortunately, Jaguar people tend to have an innate understanding of these things. With all that being said, those of you who resonate with Jaguar as a totem may find that you are called to be a healer or a spiritual guide in some fashion. This is a really hefty calling. And if this is occurring for you, expect to be doing a lot, I mean a lot, of internal work on yourself in the near future, and on things you probably never would have thought required any work at all. I remember when I first had my calling to do healing work, and I was told I was going to have to do some transformation, and I really honestly thought, what do I have to transform? I'm fine. Yeah, I had no clue what I was talking about. This is not a bad thing, and this is not intended to scare you guys, just to give you an honest awareness of the situation. Becoming a healer takes a lot of internal soul searching and the willingness to change. Now, if you're a Jaguar person, even if you don't intentionally take on a healer's role, it is important to keep in mind that what you say has power, and people will be affected by you. Some people will really love you for this. Some people will hate your guts or be terrified by you. It is not your job to please people. So don't take others' opinions of you as evidence that you're doing things right or wrong. Again, the only place where you really need to pay attention here is if you notice that you are purposely saying things to hurt people or tear them down. When you are speaking with the intention to wound, even if what you are saying is technically true, you need to pull back and examine your emotions. Sometimes we are not supposed to say anything, even if it's the truth. And it is tough to know when this is and when it is not if we are not fully tuned in because we are distracted by our own emotions. Now, jaguars are apex predators, like lions, meaning that they're at the top of the food chain in their territory, and nothing hunts them but humans. This is another area in which jaguars and leopards differ considerably. Leopards go out of their way to avoid other big cats, such as lions, and will shy away at the sight of a bigger animal, while a jaguar will stand its ground and even attack outright. 2, where a leopard has to hide out in the trees to protect itself, a jaguar will just lounge around out in the open, unafraid and unapologetic. So can you imagine how awesome it would be if you just knew you were worthy of good things, that they were just going to come to you? You had the inborn skill and strength to claim them, and no one had the power to stand in your way. A lot of the drama in your life would just fade away. No more worries about money, or people treating you badly for starters. No more fear that you weren't good enough to succeed at whatever you wanted to accomplish. All gone. Jaguar teaches us to have faith and confidence. The faith and confidence of an apex predator. He teaches us to stop buying into the things that people have told us about ourselves and our world, and instead tap into the truth within. You are powerful, and you are deserving. You have the innate ability to create exactly the life that you want and to have all of your needs met if you're willing to believe that this is possible and to trust your instincts to get you there. This doesn't mean that you'll never work for what you want, but that if you listen to your heart, your work will feel joyful and easeful, and your actions will take you easily from point A to point B. Jaguar is one of those animals where there just aren't a lot of vulnerabilities. And so when an animal like this is your totem, you often come across as the kind of person who doesn't seem to have any weaknesses. You'll usually seem to have it all together, though on the inside you might be waging quite a battle with yourself. You also tend to do things well and to impress others, though others may express this in the form of jealousy and fear rather than admiration. In fact, your talents and apparent confidence may really intimidate people. And you know what? This is not your problem. You are not intended to be less than you are for anyone. So for Jaguar people, your biggest challenge is really just the fact that your enormous potentials require a huge amount of personal investment to realize. Developing the trust that you really do have the ability to succeed in whatever you want to do and that you can rely on your own heart to guide you there takes commitment. Learning to honor that trust and do what feels right for you no matter what anyone else has ever told you takes commitment. And learning that there's a time to speak truth and a time to stay silent and how to differentiate between these times, that takes a lot of work. Jaguar people may seem naturally strong and skilled, but a mature Jaguar person has done a lot of inner development that tends to go unrecognized by others, mostly because the Jaguar person doesn't talk effusively about it. They don't need to. When you've learned Jaguar's lessons, one of the things you really get on a soul level is that the journey is about you. And you don't need to share the details with others and be lauded for them or accepted for them to feel good about yourself. This doesn't mean that you don't ever talk about these things at all. So don't think this means that you have no friends or anything like that. But that you don't endlessly tell others about them in order to gain applause or approval. 2, Jaguars have an interesting habit of hauling their food up a tree for protection before they will eat it, even if the tree is quite a distance away, and even if there doesn't seem to be another soul around who would be interested in their food. As confident as they are, Jaguar people are realists. Jaguars know that there are going to be those who want to steal what they've worked for. This is simply the nature of the world. Food is life or death, so for a Jaguar, being aware of the potential danger from thieves is what keeps their tummies full and their bodies in the kind of condition needed to remain at the top of the food chain. Similarly, Jaguar people may look like everything is just handed to them, or that they're just so super special or privileged and this is why they get what they want, but there's a lot more going on here. Their success isn't just about their innate strength, or their excellent intuition, or knowing that they're deserving. It's about seeing and accepting truth. Yes, people have the capacity to be absolutely amazing and loving, but they also have the capacity to be liars, con artists, and thieves. The Jaguar person stays on top by remaining conscious of the true nature of the others with whom they associate and taking the proper precautions rather than letting themselves be fooled by someone's sad appearance or sob story. They also try to solve problems before they become a problem rather than waiting for things to go wrong and then complaining about it. Jaguar people are very, very intelligent, but one of their greatest strengths is plain old common sense. Now, Jaguars don't chase down their food like cheetahs or lions. They can run, but it's not really an important skill for them. Instead, they just kind of walk slowly down forest paths, listening for and stalking their prey before ambushing them. They attack from cover, usually in the prey's blind spot, and it's all over before the prey has any idea that this is its last breath. In fact, a jaguar's ambushing abilities are considered the very best in the animal kingdom. If you're a jaguar person, and you're feeling like you have to chase after the stuff that you want, you are off track. That thing either isn't meant for you, or you're trying to force it to manifest before the time is right. When we chase after things, we either don't get them, or if we do get them, we really wish we hadn't, and more, that we could get rid of them. I'm not talking about the kind of chasing that feels fun, like, where you're trying to win someone's affections, and the whole thing's a bit of a game, and it's exciting. What I mean by chasing is when you keep trying to make something happen and it just won't come together. People don't return your calls, or the opportunity just falls through again and again, or your car breaks down, or you miss a flight, or someone forgets the appointment they had with you. Or trying to get the answers just feels like work, 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 work. When you want something, take a lesson from Jaguar. Relax. Take a little walk. Trust your senses. If you calm down and tune into yourself, you will know what to do next. It will be instinctive. It might not make logical sense. Most of the higher self's guidance doesn't. But something about it will just feel good to you. More, when you follow this guidance, the things you want will come to you effortlessly rather than through exertion. This is a tough skill to learn. Because, again, people will want to tell you all the reasons why trusting yourself is the last thing you should do. And most of us grow up believing that what we want will only come through hard work and deliberate action. Jaguar people do tend to engage in more active work than other big cat people, as jaguars are active far more than other big cats. But it doesn't feel like work. It feels like ease, like fun. They just listen to their hearts and they do what they love, what they're passionate about, and success comes to them. This is intended to be true for all of us, regardless of our totems, by the way, but it's a lesson that not every person gets around to learning in this lifetime. Sometimes it's less important than others, and so you don't have to work with it as much. For Jaguar people, this lesson is a big deal, and it's likely to be one that gets thrust in your face again and again if you aren't paying attention. Next, unlike lions, which live in prides, jaguars are solitary creatures. They only come together with others of their kind to mate, and then both partners go their separate ways. They're also extremely difficult to study in their natural habitats. It's harder to nail down the location of a single jaguar that lives in the jungle compared to a whole pride of lions, for example. And their terrain that they prefer isn't really easily accessible. For Jaguar people, what this creates is a fierce need for independence. They simply cannot tolerate anyone placing restrictions on them or telling them what to do. If you know any Aquarians, my husband's an Aquarian, this is a very Aquarian sort of quality. Don't tell me what to do, I want my freedom. They need their own space. They need to be able to do things their own way. These people, these Jaguar people, also tend to be very private. Again, they aren't really ones to gush about themselves, nor do they enjoy spending a lot of time in groups. Their best and happiest work tends to be done on their own. Additionally, when we are invested in remaining part of a group of people, it can be extremely difficult to maintain our unique identity. We feel pressure to fit in, to be liked and accepted, or at the very least, to do what's necessary to avoid stirring the pot in a way that would lead to an attack. We don't say what we're really thinking and feeling. We might avoid certain actions that feel good to us out of fear that we'll be judged for them. And sometimes we glom onto things that the group believes, even when we don't believe them ourselves, because we think that the majority must know better than we do. When one of your animal totems is a really solitary creature like a jaguar, when that creature feels really present for you, it's really making itself known in your life, it's usually the case that you will be facing some pretty hefty challenges alone, or what feels like being alone, even if there are others in your life that you would normally rely on. This is because it is almost impossible to get in touch with who we really are, the kind of powerful people who can create exactly the life we want by trusting ourselves, when we feel pressure to fit in. Or we have a whole bunch of other people telling us that we are nuts for doing anything different from the group. It's also the case that when we can lean on others, we often don't take responsibility for ourselves when we should. And so we don't learn how strong and resourceful we can be. That solitude, as hard as it can be, is there to force you to face yourself and become comfortable being yourself, trusting yourself. It's much easier to learn to be the real you when you aren't afraid of how others will react. When you get to the point where you're able to stay true to yourself in the face of challenges and judgment from others, and when you recognize that you don't actually need others to succeed, then you often rejoin your social circle, or you create a new one if the old one was lost, or a new one if you never had one before. So don't feel the fear of the solitude. It's really, really there to help you learn how to love, accept, and trust the real you, and to teach you how strong you are, not because you're unlovable or because the universe is a cruel place. So what does it mean when you're not only a jaguar person, but a black jaguar person? There are a few extra qualities. First, black jaguars tend to live in the rainforest, in places that are tough for humans to access, because the darker coat blends in better there than it would in open terrain. The standard spotted jaguar becomes invisible when you place it amidst ground cover and tree branches, but a black jaguar would stand out like a sore thumb, so it wouldn't be able to stalk and hunt. In a dark rainforest, they just melt into the shadows, and they can stalk their prey without being seen. For Black Panther people, what this creates is a heightened emphasis on secrecy. These folks really, really resist your attempts to ask about their personal lives or probe their inner workings. Unlike with some totems, this isn't because they're afraid that if they let you in, you will wound them, but rather that they just don't think this stuff is any of your business. You and your judgments would just get in the way or be a waste of time. Guys, if there was a totem that was the antithesis of warm and fuzzy, this would be one of them. So Black Panther people also, even more so than the normal Jaguar person, are able to delve deeply into their shadows and make peace with what lives there. The term shadow gets thrown around a lot in New Age circles, and the meaning seems to vary depending on who you're talking to. So for the sake of clarity, when I use the term shadow, as in the shadow self, what I'm talking about is all of our fears, all of our wounds, all of our self-judgments, and the pieces of ourselves that we don't think others should see. The things that we don't think others could handle if they knew. These are the things that cause us to keep our real self in the shadows, so to speak. When we face these things, when we really become intimate, close, understand what lives inside us, all those objectionable pieces of ourselves, we begin to step away from social judgments about right and wrong, or what others think is proper. And we move in tandem with the guidance of our higher selves, which doesn't give a damn about what anyone else thinks. So Black Jaguar people, Black Panther people, don't live in denial of their real needs and feelings like most other people. And they don't do what's necessarily socially proper. And this tends to freak other people out. This type of understanding of the shadow self can also make Jaguar people superb healers, as they really understand what makes other people tick. But you are not going to find these people on Oprah. Again, they're not touchy-feely, and their approach to life is very blunt and direct. So for Black Jaguar people, healing is very much a, here's what's wrong with you, now suck it up, quit whining, and get to work fixing it sort of thing. Whatever they do, Black Jaguar people tend to come across as a force of nature, very much like a tornado or a hurricane. There's just no stopping these guys. You can either get out of their way or they will destroy you on the way to what they want. And it's not personal. You just happen to be in their way, and in their mind, you should have known better. And again, they are on a soul mission. They're not just, being randomly destructive. This is what higher self is telling them to do. So I hope this has given you guys a good understanding of Jaguar and Black Jaguar, Black Panther. But if you would like further information, you are welcome to schedule a session with me. I work with people all over the world to help them understand the unique messages of their animal totems and spirit guides, and to also help with physical and emotional healing, dream interpretation, figuring out what you're here to do with yourself, and about a billion other things, and I would love to work with you as well. A lot of you guys ask how I do this. I work over the phone and via Skype, so we don't need to be in any type of physical proximity to do this. This is what I do for a living. It is absolutely awesome. And so if you are interested in working with me, you can visit my website, which is www.ravenlightholistichealing.com. It'll tell you exactly what I do, what to expect, what I charge, how to book a session with me, and all that good stuff. I am also on Facebook and Instagram at Ravenlight Holistic Healing. Make sure you look for Ravenlight Holistic Healing, not me, Jordana Van, because I don't respond to requests on my personal page. And while I understand if you would like my professional opinion on your spiritual situation, I don't provide this outside of a formal session. So if you're interested in my opinion or guidance, please book a session. Again, I would love to work with you. Have a gorgeous day, my darlings. Cheers.